Hey guys, Jim here. Time to make our way into Guest Blade episode number 22. And this is going to be kind of an interesting one for a lot of people because this is not a custom knife. It's not a mid-tech knife. It's a straight up production knife. And I had put out kind of a cattle call a few weeks ago here on my channel for folks to send in a couple of different specific knives that I was kind of interested in, and I think some people were surprised that one of them happened to be a production knife. But, you know, there's still so many really good production knives out there, especially for everyday tasks, that I didn't want to overlook those because there's still going to be some that we need to have in our collections. We're not always going to take a $1,000 custom knife and go out and really do hardcore abusive shit with it. So that's where a really good production knife is going to come in. And again, it's also going to be skipping over the really cheap production knives, the ones that you wouldn't trust to do those sorts of tasks. So before we get into this, I want to thank the generous person who donated this knife to us. His name is Rob. We all know him as the Apostle P here on YouTube. And Rob's just a super awesome guy. He comments on a lot of my videos, brings in a lot of knowledge. We may not always agree on certain things, particularly aesthetic things, but he's got a sharp eye for good knives, and no pun intended, he actually has like a sharpening service. So if you ever have a knife that you're not overly crazy about the way the sharpness came from the factory, you can send it over to Rob. He'll give you a nice, sweet sharpening job. And that's actually what he did to this. So we're not going to be judging the edge quality on this knife because it's not going to be the factory edge. It is an edge that he put on, and it's kind of stupid sharp. So it's not really going to factor into the quality of this particular knife because, as he mentioned, it came respectable, but nothing particularly impressive. So, you know, right out of the box, it's going to do the hard work you need it to do, but for finer cutting tasks, you may have an issue. And it was a very fat grind from what I understand, so it may not push through thicker materials. Even something as simple as cutting cardboard, if you don't have the right angle on that secondary bevel, it's going to bind up and bunch up on you and cause an issue. Something that our good friend Gavco has been trying to tell us for a long, long time. So without any further ado, let's get into this. This is apparently the packaging that you'll receive. I'm going to assume there was an outer box as well, but Rob was awesome to give me the full packaging here. Everything's inside that should be in there. So we open this up, and we see what the contents are. You've got your lanyard here. It's more like a bungee, actually. Move that to the side. We'll take a look at the card that comes with it. Written in a lovely language called German that I can't decipher for you. So, yeah, sure. There you go. So there's that. Get that out of the way. Get the bungee out of the way. And we'll get the knife out of the case. This is a damn sweet case. This is a really nice case. I think it's a Maxpedition case. It certainly seems like that level of quality. Get that off to the side. Get the knife out of the plastic baggie. The first thing you'll notice is the clip is on backwards. That's okay. I'm sure he's left-handed, and that's how he carries it. So what you're looking at is G10 sculpted on one side. They did a really nice job on this, too. It's got a nice pattern to it. And full tie on the other. Now, you'll notice right there where instead of saying Pohl Force, it says Lion Steel, because Lion Steel, the Maniago factory, they're putting out a few different, I think Blackwater is another one if I'm not mistaken on the name, a few different brands that come out of them. You know, and Lion Steel really has developed quite a reputation for quality. You know, you have to look past the issues they had with burning up their heat treats during grinding on their LMAX knives, but everything else, their fit and finish seems to be fantastic. Their overall quality, I don't think anybody really has an issue with them. And they have this very interesting lock on here, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. So let's get the knife open. And you'll see immediately, nice big billboard on the side there for Pohl Force. This is the Mic 1 Outdoor. And they have a few different designations. If you get this really nice stone wash, this is going to be called the Outdoor. If you get the PVD version, it's called the Survival. And then they offer a version, from what I understand, without a thumb stud, and they just call that the Mic 2. Now, immediately, the first thing that jumps into people's heads is going to be how a knife looks. That's what you're seeing in a picture. That's what you're seeing in a video before you make the purchase. And it is a very funky, very strange shape. Immediately, when I put this in my hand, I understood why. Everything about this seemed to be designed around the hand. It looks a lot bulkier than it really is. It's actually a fairly slim knife. When you put it in your hand instantly drops into position. So you've got a nice forward cutting position here. If you choke up, to use the very generous choil they have here, you'll notice how the blade and the thumb stud slope downward so that your thumb drops into it instantly. No real need even for jimping or anything because it just kind of falls into place. You've got a little bit of useless jimping here, and when I say useless, I mean useless. I'm pushing into it, and my thumb still slides across it, almost as if it were smooth. So that wasn't too great. I would have actually put some jimping in here as well, so that you know the entire cradle for your thumb would have kept it in place. But you know that's not the worst thing in the world. It's a very smooth action on this. It's a little awkward for me because I despise thumb discs. I do not like them. It's too much of a reach for me usually. And I tend to lose purchase on it as I'm opening it if I'm trying to do a slow open. My thumb actually kind of bounces off of thumb discs for some reason. And when you go to flick, it's a unique action when you get into a thumb disc. I'd rather have a thumb stud. You guys know I prefer flippers above everything, but I'd rather have a thumb stud or a good old-fashioned Spidey hole. I've never had a complaint opening up any Spydercos. Super simple, very easy to do. So let's give you some size comparisons here before we get off into anything a little bit more technical. We'll bring out the Spyderco, so we'll put this up against the Paramilitary 2, butt to butt. And you'll see it is a good size larger than a Paramilitary 2. And then we put it right up next to the Chris Reeve Omnomzon, and it's only a little bit bigger than that. Now, what you're looking at is a 3 3/4 inch blade. But what they're able to do is they're really maximizing the size of the handle. And they're folding up a good amount of that blade into the handle. You've only got a little bit here that's left over. I'd say that's approximately 1/4 inch. So you've got a nice handle size. It's going to fill your hand nicely. Put it next to my Elishewitz. This is the Omega M5. And butt to butt, it's actually a little bit bigger. I have a 4-inch blade on the Omega M5. So it's a really good size knife. It's got a nice balance in the hand. All those great ergonomics. Even in the reverse grip, they've tapered this down nicely, put a gear style G10 backspacer on there for a little bit of additional purchase. It seems like it's going to be pretty easy to flip over the pocket clip because you have this removable screw here that obviously holds in this paper clip style clip. I don't really have an issue with this style clip for this price range of knife. Because again, it's not really expensive. They're about $350, $365 in that price range. And to get a full tie side, sculpted tie, by the way, I think it's a pretty good value. As far as things I'm not crazy about, it's got a little bit of lock stick, and that's really generated by the fact that, get open. The lock is a really late lockup. Now you see with a gentle opening, what am I, about 50% lockup right there. And a little bit of stick. One thing I don't like is that you're forced to really push that lock bar over far to clear the blade. Now if I give it a good, nice solid opening there, you'll see it's only a little bit of a difference. It only walked over a little bit more, but watch this. Yeah, there's definitely a noticeable stick to it. Now I'm not going to say that's going to be representative of every single knife they put out, but it is certainly a present on the one I have here. What I don't like is how far I have to disengage that lock bar to clear the blade. So overall, as far as how it feels in the hand, it's got a great feel in the hand. The usability for someone like me, I wouldn't buy one. For somebody that likes to have a thumb disc, you know, you're big into your Emersons and whatnot, you're going to like this. It's just a personal thing for me. Certainly don't take that into account as to whether you should buy it or not. I like the overall grippiness of the frame. It's not, going to shred up your pants or anything like that, but it's got just enough tactility to it to be comfortable. Solid G10 backspacer on a knife that I would consider a hard use knife, something that might be carried every single day, especially in the field or for work. I would prefer it to be a much more open design, because all it's going to do is collect pocket lint, dirt, dust, sand, whatever the conditions are that you're in. It's just collecting it inside of your knife for no reason. But it is a fairly inexpensive way to manufacture, I guess. I can't imagine that it's much more expensive to make two little standoffs, but you see this a lot on this price range and lower. The pivot is really big, really beefy, very Strider-like in its size and almost in its construction. Looks like it's going to be super easy to maintain, especially in the field. All you need to have in your pocket is a quarter or maybe 2 quarters. I don't know if one's going to stay situated when you're turning the other. It should, that by design, but it may not. You've got a very, very large stop pin for your blade. Overall, it's a nice quality build. Again, except for that sticky lock. There's a little bit of a sharp spot right there. I just noticed it as I was going to drop my finger into that choil. So that one little edge right there. Focus. There we go. And it may not be something that you would actually feel very often, but like I said, I've been playing with this knife for all of 5 minutes, and I've already kind of experienced that. Not crazy about that. Love the look from this side, though. It's a very purpose-built knife. Now, the funny thing about this is they're using a German Lohmann steel. Lohmann is a German factory, and Lion Steel is really good about doing that. They worked with the Sleipner steels and everything. They bring out things that are a little bit different, where I think they have a little bit less competition. And honestly, in this case, it's going to be a cost-saving measure. They're using a steel called Nylox. Really what it essentially is, it's like a step above AEBL, which, you see a lot of fairly inexpensive fixed blade knives being made out of, because it's a fairly tough steel. It's supposed to be fairly corrosion resistant, and it's supposed to maintain an edge for a decent amount of time. Now, I haven't seen any definitive data on that. You really can't go off the data sheets, because as a friend of mine likes to say, that's just their marketing. That's them selling stuff to you in the data sheets. So I'm going to take a pass on that, because I have had zero experience with this steel. But again, its reputation is that of it's not very expensive, it holds a decent edge, and it's supposed to have pretty decent corrosion resistance. As Rob tells me, it's kind of a pain in the ass to sharpen. So if you're the kind that you really are using your knives a lot, and you tend to do a lot of resharpening, this might be a steel that you're going to want to avoid if it's going to be that, I don't even want to say problematic, but maybe a little bit more difficult and time consuming than other steels. Overall, I think the weight is nice. I think the balance is nice. It's about 5.5 ounces, a little bit heavier than that. You've got something that feels good in the hand. It's slimmer than it looks like it should be. It's got a smooth operation. It's using nylon or Teflon washers inside, so it's got a nice smoothness to it. It's not going to be wonderfully quick, but again, this is, it's not trying to compete against, a flipper or anything. It's meant to be a hard-use, daily carry, even field knife. So for those purposes, I think it's fine. It's almost like opening a Chris Reeve. It's not that level of smoothness, of course, but it's very, very close to that. They've done a great job with that pivot, the way that it feels. I just wish that lock didn't stick the way that it does. And it seems like a dry knife, so I don't think that's from Rob owning it and putting lube in there and getting lube on the lock interface. I think it's just a sticky lock. So overall, I would say this: at the price range, is it worth it? At say $360, $365. It really depends. You're getting now into the price range very close to an Omnumzon. Obviously not, pimped out like this, but a standard Omnumzon is going to run you $4.25, but you can usually find a used one for $3.65. I'd rather have the Omnumzon personally. I like the overall, well, everything of the knife. I like the blade shape better. I like the comfort in the hand just fine. I think they're fairly equal. This is more ergonomic, but this is one that's wonderfully practical. As you see, I didn't have any issues disengaging my lock bar on that either. I just find this to be a very practical knife, but it's a few dollars more. You can get into a Strider SNG, because there is no real comparison in size. SNG is a little smaller, SMF is a little bit bigger. This falls in between the two. But to have one of those two for $20 to $30 more, I'd probably go Strider, to be perfectly honest with you. I've had some very good luck with Striders. I like the feel of a Strider in the hand. I like the security. Again, that's not really a knock against this knife. I think it may just be more a familiarity thing. And that may be why the Pohl Force is having a harder time catching on in the U.S. These are very popular knives, but they're not at that level. People aren't going oohs and ahs every single day. You have your Strider fans and this and that just, they don't freaking stop. And there's a reason for it. Strider makes a hell of a good knife. Are there issues? Yes. Are there issues with every manufactured product in the world? Yes. So I'm not going to go too far onto that. But for my money, I think I would give a slight edge over to Strider. And in spending a little bit more money, you have so many different steel choices, including 3V and things like that you can do in Strider that are not available here. I think there's a greater amount of precision possibly that goes into making a Strider. Again, that may just be a personal opinion due to familiarity. There's nothing wrong with this knife. Absolutely not. I think if you were looking for a really good hard use knife, something you could carry every single day, beat up, knock around, and have sort of the feeling of a fixed blade from time to time with their locking mechanism, it prevents the lock bar from opening. So this is going to have now the stability, or that they claim the stability, of a fixed blade. And you don't need any tools. It's a simple quarter turn, and you're done. Very, very simple. I like that concept as a concept. I think it's really cool. I don't know how often I would use it. Then that gives it an edge over Striders and other similar knives, because you've basically got a folding fixed blade knife at that point. And that may be the reason why they choose such a far engagement on this lock bar, so that when this is locked in place, A, they have to clear this disc, so it's got to go over a bit. And B, when it's locked in place, you've got 50% of that blade engaged by the lock. So that very well could be the reason for the later lockup. Boy, he does put a nice looking edge on there, doesn't he? Woo-wee! So again, overall, it's a great, useful knife. There's nothing particularly pretty about it. It wasn't meant to be. It's not a beauty queen. It's not a safe queen. It's something that you're going to hammer on, you're going to beat on, and I think it's going to be good for that. I wouldn't put anybody away from buying one, but I would certainly tell them, if they asked me, I would say, well, there are other knives and very close in the price range that you could be getting into. Now, you could spend less and get into zero tolerance in some models. It's up to you as to whether you feel the quality is up there or not. There's things with zero tolerance, they knock it out of the freaking park on certain models, and some other models are just kind of okay. I think this stands alone as being a good quality knife. I think it's one that would last you a lifetime. I wouldn't foresee any particularly major issues with it, aside from when it comes time to sharpen it, it's a pain in the ass to sharpen. So we'll give you a nice close-up look here as we bring this to a close. This is one of the very few times that I'm kind of on the fence by the end of the overview. I don't dislike it, but I'm not particularly wowed by it. It's just kind of it's a good knife. It's just not particularly special. And you know what? Not every knife needs to be. There's the Nylox marking right there. Camera's having a hard time focusing today. I apologize. So there you go. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. This is probably the very first time I haven't been able to say definitively, yes, go out and buy this, or it's okay, but it's not all that great. It's one that kind of falls in between for me. I see nothing really particularly wrong with it except for the lock stick and that one little sharp edge. Personal nitpicks were just the thumb disc, but again, they make it without a thumb disc. So I would say this, yeah. If you were looking at buying one, it's a solid knife, it's a solid choice, but I would certainly entertain other options and compare them before you drop the money on it, just to make sure you're making the best choice for you. And with that, I am out of here. I have a lot more videos I have to catch up on. I apologize, guys, for the delay. I've got a Mosier, I've got a couple of Laconicos, I have a Birch. I've got some great stuff to get some overview videos done on. I'm going to try and knock those out in the next 4 to 5 days before I leave for the New York Custom Knife Show, which, ooh, that's going to be an exciting time. Hope to see a lot of you guys there. If not, I will catch you next time on the next video.